What's up, guys? Clutch Fan 37 bringing you the ECD Weapon X lacrosse head review. Obviously, if you've been around the lacrosse world in the last couple of weeks, you've probably seen this head pop up everywhere. You've seen a bunch of videos. Greg Renlian, Green Knuckles Lacrosse, whose video is phenomenal. I'm sure there's a couple other people who have done it, but I figured I would give you guys my rundown of the head, my review, my point of view on things and whatnot. And there's a lot to talk about with this head, so we're just going to dive right into it. So hopefully by now you guys have seen a spec rundown of the Weapon X head, whether it's from ECD's post, the Inside the Product video, Blake from Green Knuckles Lacrosse, who will reference a lot in this video, or Greg Renlian. Just hopefully you've seen the specs. So quick rundown because I'd feel weird doing a head review and not going over it. 6 top string holes, pretty standard most lacrosse as in all the Rebel heads. A nice lipped scoop, which is fantastic for face-offs, ground balls, and it just protects your strings a little longer, which I'm a big fan of. Going down the sidewalls, the first 3 holes are large and rectangular, so you can double wrap or triple wrap. Don't know if it's necessary with a face-off pocket, or at least in my opinion, because you will rip through knots and strings probably a lot more than the standard player, but still an option, which is great. And then going down to about this point, you have a lot of stringing holes, which is, we'll dive into later with the whole idea of being a face-off stay-on head. From there, the bottom ones, you have 3 or 4 spaced out, depending on if you count the top one. Reason being, obviously for face-offs, you want the throat and the lower portion of the head to be as sturdy and durable as possible. The more holes you have, the more prone to breaking it is, unless you are a freak of nature like the 2F, which blows my mind, but 4 they're spaced out pretty well. Bottom string holes, you have 4 of them. You can fit leathers through if you're a leather guy. Facing off, I don't see a whole lot of that. But now that this head is meant for staying on and playing offense and maybe even defense, I could see some people using a leather pocket based on their preferences. Biggest thing with this head is the asymmetrical design. So obviously if you look at it from the side, the bottom rails are asymmetrical. They create an X. I'm really excited about that and to show you guys my opinions and thoughts on that later on in the video. Going into the throat, you have 3 screw holes, 1 on each side of the head and then 1 in the back. Me personally, I would only use 1 or 2 screws because the shafts I've tried this on, it's fit very tightly. I've only used 1 in the back, but if you're someone who wants to use 2 or 3 for the unnecessary. If you want to use 2 or 3 to help lock it in because that's what you want to do, you can definitely do it. I would recommend using a drill bit of some sort to drill into it just because when you look through the hole and you get to the throat plug itself, there isn't any holes drilled into it or pre-drilled, so you're definitely going to have to put some effort in, or at least a little more than average to get it into this throat plug. I said screw hole. I'm losing it. My biggest thing with this head is the throat plug itself feels extremely durable and extremely sturdy. I mess around with some duals and some dual 2s, and I've noticed that after switching it on and off with shafts, the plastic they use is just kind of flimsy and it doesn't really do a whole lot, especially down here towards the bottom. I have seen one break down here. I don't know exactly how it happened, but I have seen one break. The throat plug is very sturdy, very durable, and it feels like it's almost made of the same plastic this stuff is. Or at least the head itself is, which is great. Getting to the face shape, I'm a big fan of it. It's similar to the Rebel offense, just toned down and a little more pinched. Obviously, it can't be as thick and as durable. Not durable, we'll say thick and sturdy as a Rebel offense because as a face-off guy, you want the head to have some flex to it. So, face shape's great, stringability, we'll get into at some point, but it strings up great. Sidewall holes, fantastic. Another cool thing that I don't think a lot of people have noticed is under the ball stop, if you remove it, it has 3 Latin words. Couldn't tell you what they are, couldn't tell you what they mean. I've seen some people post about it. Me personally, just too lazy to take the ball stop off. So that is the quick spec rundown, and now we're going to get into the actual head review. Obviously the head is meant for you to face off and stay on. It's a FOSO head, which sounds funny to say out loud, but it's a FOSO head. You have the Mark IIF, the Dual 2, and the Burn face-off that don't have a whole lot of offset to them. The Weapon X is the first face-off ideaed head that has a full offset to it. So my whole idea and the thing that I was thinking about a lot when I saw this head was, you have people who have their face-off pockets. You have people who don't like shooting strings, who can win a ball real quickly and then throw it to a guy, or even rip a shot from inside their stranding line. But this head wasn't designed for that. This head was designed for you to stay on the face-off, or stay on the field after the face-off. For me, the way I see it is a face-off takes between maybe 1 to 10 seconds for a solid face-off battle, and then if you win the face-off and you run down the field, you could be on the offensive end for 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes at a time. So you want to make sure this head is rigged for that. So my biggest recommendation if you get this head is, if you go to the store and you buy it and you know how to string your stick up, or you have a buddy do it, make sure it's strung up for you to play offense with. Don't take this head out and start doing dummy face-offs and trying to break it in and then worry about shooting and passing with it. I would highly recommend you string up a pocket that you can shoot with, one that you can pass with accurately, and one that you're comfortable playing offense with. From there, go in, take some dummy face-offs, break the head in, and then make adjustments as you go. You can see with mine, I have one nylon, one straight, a little lower in the head, because originally I had them up higher and I was passing, shooting with it after taking a couple of dummy draws. And I could pass with it, and I could shoot with it, but it didn't feel comfortable. It felt like I was forcing it. There wasn't as much whip as I wanted. The pocket didn't sit necessarily where I liked it to. So from there, I changed up the pocket, changed up the shooting strengths, made sure I could pass and shoot with it. Took some dummy face-offs, and I felt very comfortable with the head that way. So that would be my biggest recommendation if you do get this head, is start off shooting and passing. From there, work on breaking as a face-off head, make adjustments as needed, and go from there. So obviously, number one, I know that the black tape and black head is illegal. I play men's league, so it doesn't matter too much to me. Two, I'm not going to do a whole bunch of face-offs with this and show you guys the flex points, because Blake from Green Knuckles Lacrosse absolutely knocked out of the park, and he did so much. So here, I'm just going to show you guys some things that I noticed, some things maybe to help you guys choose this head or not. But obviously, when you want to face off, you want the ball as close to the throat as possible. Obviously, the closer it is to the throat, the more control you have, because your hand's here, the more secure it naturally will be. And with all the flex points and all the heads nowadays, it just secures it. So if you get the head in the throat and you win, you're pretty much golden. One thing I noticed, and especially with these asymmetrical design, that's better than the burn face-off, because it's, each side has the two struts. When you get a 50-50 on the head and you're really fighting for it, if you can get the win and the ball is here in the middle of the head and you're able to really flex down on it, for one, you have this rail which is pushing in on the ball, you have the other rail which is flexing inward, but with the asymmetrical design, it almost creates a cross to hold the ball. So you have this one going up, the other one going down the other side. Let's see, actually, how am I going to do this? There, let's do it like that. It's like that. So in my opinion, the way I see that is, if you have a symmetrical sidewall design, so you have one on the bottom, one on the top, and you're holding the ball, it makes it much easier for the ball to wiggle through and fall out. If you take the ball and you have a cross section, it's naturally going to hold the ball a little better. It's going to be sturdy. You can get hit from either of the sides and it'll kind of wobble some, but it's going to hold it a lot better. So with the Weapon X and that asymmetrical design planned perfectly in the middle of the head, you win the face-off, you bend it, no matter where you bend it. If it gets, even if it gets higher up in the head, you have these cross platforms that are really pinching on the ball and helping you win. So for me, I think that's great. I think it's going to do a lot better in face-offs against a CEO, a 2F, dual, whatever it may be. So lastly, obviously my stance isn't the best, but if you win it here, and even if you go backwards, so instead of pinching it normally this way, right, you go backwards, you have the same asymmetrical design on both sides. Top rail is pushing on the ball downward, the other one's going in an X. Creates a nice pinch and pop hold area. So that's one thing I don't think a lot of people touched on. And another thing that I don't know, I just think it makes a lot of sense, at least in my opinion, for a face-off head, especially winning it. So another thing I want to touch on with this head that I don't think many people talked about is the Mark IIF is designed to spring back into shape as quick as possible. It's a springy plastic and it snaps back like a rubber band. The Weapon X has FlexForm technology, which, after seeing the video we talked about earlier where they took the head, bent it, and then let go, and it kind of naturally popped into shape and then slowly went, I had this crazy idea in theory with it, and it's, as far as I know, proven to be as true as possible. So hypothetically, it takes, between 4 to 8 seconds for you to win a face-off, run down the field, and get in the offensive set. The 2F, it takes maybe half a second for the head to be bent and then snap back into shape. The Weapon X, however, let's just say dummy face-off, you win it, you crank it, right? I'm gonna let it sit here and bend a little bit. Within the couple seconds it takes for you to win the face-off and you pop it out, you have to run down the field. And you can see the head is a little bent out of shape. But if you give it just a couple seconds, it kind of pushes itself as straight as possible. Flex form technology, don't know if that's the mission behind it, but that's what it seems to do for me. So ideally, like I said, if you go down, you win the face-off, and you crank on it, the head's not going to spring back into shape as quick as the 2F. However, you don't necessarily need it to spring in that quick. So you win the ball, let's just say you bend it out of shape, you get to the ball, you scoop it with the fantastic scoop it has, and naturally it just kind of bends itself into shape. And within that 4 to 8 seconds it takes for you to get down the field, it should be in good enough shape to where you can pass and shoot with it and be an offensive threat more than the average run down, rip a shot, get off. So flex form, I think that's what it does. I think that's the best way I can describe it, and hopefully it makes sense to some of you guys. So last look, obviously do this, crank it, win, naturally just kind of goes back into shape. So hopefully that little segment made some sense to people. That's the best way I could describe it without going through and doing a whole bunch of draws, just kind of basing off what I can. But from a face view, the flex form technology is not as springy as a 2F. It's kind of in between a 2F and a standard plastic. Obviously you crank the head back, you let go, and you can see it. It springs for a little bit and it gets to a close point, but within a couple of seconds it does naturally push the head a little more. I wouldn't be too concerned about it because if you are a decent enough player to get a ground ball, you have a fantastic scoop which will help you with that. Plus the head itself, I mean, even if it is a little crooked, it still has the offset to where it'll cradle and hold the ball better than a standard face-off head or standard face-off head. And if it's, straight enough, you can definitely shoot the ball, pass, and contribute more to the offense. Me personally, at least in my opinion, if you are a player who wants to be more of a threat on the offensive end or defensive, you want to be able to learn the plays, play on offense for a minute, 2 minutes, be more of a threat, but still win the face-off for your team, this head should definitely be something you check out. Obviously, it's not like all the other face-off heads because it does have that maximum offset as possible for what they're looking for, so it does take some getting used to. And that's why, in my personal opinion, if you do get this head, I recommend, like I said before, you string it up and make sure you can absolutely rip with it, be as accurate as possible and pass. From there, break it down as a face-off head, and then make some minor adjustments as you go. The other key feature with this head is most of them, depending on where you go, I think the Monkey Sports by me takes all the heads off the headstands and they throw them away, which is a shame. But this head comes with the perfect spacer for your head, or at least I think it's as perfect as possible. So get the headstand, throw it in however you want, whether down here, up here, it's great. Greg mentioned with softballs that it does get the head out of shape, and I agree with that. I've seen a couple times with my own heads and other buddies' heads, if you softball any head, whether it's a face-off head or a standard head, it gets bent out of sorts. The scoop becomes flat. It creates this very wide scoop here, or scoop area, almost like a Mark Matthews burn head. And from there, just having a softball, I mean, with these rails here, it could jut them out, make them all wonky. Don't necessarily want that. Hockey puck method is cool as well, but in my opinion, and what I've told a couple people is, if you're going to hockey puck a head, obviously a hockey puck is not as thick as the sidewall portions of a head. I get 2 of them and I tape them together so they're stacked and they're a little bit wider than the head. Plop them in, but even then they are circular, so it can jut these places out. Make it a little wonky. So having this in the head is phenomenal. Obviously I don't face off a whole lot, but I do keep this around. If any of my buddies need it, I gave it to them. Pretty cool. So overall, the ECD Weapon X I think is a fantastic head for a certain person. If you are strictly going to be a face-off, get-off guy and you're looking to upgrade from the CEO or the 2F or the Dual, and you want to try out the Weapon X, worth a shot. But if you just want to win face-offs, I think there are other options out there as well. So don't really know if I'd recommend this for just a face-off person. So very quickly, before I end this video and give you guys my final thoughts and goodbye, I want to go over the stringing just because I figured a couple people may ask about it. I have a 9 diamond top string going through all 6 holes, starting on the 2nd hole, and from there I just went right through the 2nd hole as well. Went through 1 and did an SI after skipping, was it 2 holes? SI, skip a whole SI, and then going through the inside here, this is where it gets a little tricky, but pretty easy. Hopefully you can pause the video and look at it. So after this SI, I just go right through the head, go through the back of the mesh once, loop it, go through 3 diamonds, loop it, go through 2, and end here in the throat. My whole idea behind that is, oh, where's that ball? Here. My whole idea behind it is that's how I did my 2F, and like I said, I'm not a face-off guy. I just like to string sticks and play with it. But I think having the mesh on the inside helps with the sidewalls and everything not fraying or ripping. I also think that since it's pushed here on the inside, it's not locked in like an SI, it's just kind of looped through. I think it holds the ball a little better. So as the head pinches, the mesh compresses and holds the ball. Plus, having these SIs and having it have a nice shelf here, or a nice little ramp almost, the ball can pop out a little better. You can see here, I mean, there's not a lot of place for the ball to go. So that's kind of how I strung it up. I sent it over to Blake from Green Oaks Lacrosse to see what his thoughts were, and he said, as long as it works for me, it's good. And 2, not having these locked in like an SI and having them be able to float and move around helps out. So I don't know if it's ideal. I don't know if it's going to help any of you guys, but that's ideally how I did it. So there you have it, guys. That is my Weapon X review. Hopefully you enjoyed some parts of it. I did my best to leave all the face-off terminology, the flex points, the bending. I tried my best to leave that to everyone else. Greg Renlian, Blake from Green Oaks Lacrosse, who is just incredible with what he does. I absolutely love his videos, and that's a big reason I wanted to review the Weapon X, was because, you know, I want to start getting into face-offs more after watching a lot of his videos. I play men's league, so I think I'll be able to take face-offs and not hurt the team, but we'll see. Stringability-wise, I don't know if this whole idea does anything for anyone. For me, it makes sense, at least in my mind. But I'm sure as time goes on, I take more face-offs, I may change it. I don't know. It just makes sense to me. So hopefully, if you took anything from this video, it's the flex form technology and my take on it, and how, yes, it does spring into shape, but after it gets to a point, it just kind of naturally, it takes a couple seconds, but naturally goes more and more into shape. And on top of that, hopefully, my take on being an offensive-minded player, then face-offs, makes some sense to some people. I'm sure there will be a couple face-off nerds who comment down below and say my form was bad, or I don't know what I'm talking about, and that's fine. If you watch the whole video and you get to the ending, you had to have liked it at some point, and hopefully I made some sense to some people. So, ECD Weapon X, Hero 2.0 face-off. Mesh-wise, I didn't touch on the mesh too much. It feels like Hero 2.0, that's just thinner. I think it's great mesh. I think ECD obviously spent some time on it, so if you are going to go through and get a Weapon X, I would might as well pick up the Hero 2.0 face-off mesh for it. Maybe I'll dive into the mesh later on, but I feel like most people care about the head. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, throw it a like. It kind of helps me with analytics and finding out what videos do well, what people are interested in. And on top of that, if you do find this video and you aren't subscribed, you can subscribe if you like. A lot more lacrosse content coming. I'm close to 10,000. So, there it is, guys. Weapon X. I absolutely like this head a lot. I like the idea behind it, the mission statement with it. And this is definitely going to get a lot of use this spring and summer. So, thanks for watching, guys. We all know by now I don't know how to end a video. But lastly, please go check out Blake from Green Oaks Lacrosse. I think his face-off videos are phenomenal. He's a great guy. He's really cool. And he puts so much time and effort into his videos. He really does. So, there you have it. Definitely pick one up. This thing's fun.